There you all are. Once again, I'm James Sherry, curator for December-January. In 2004, Joan Retallack published The Poetical Wager, a landmark book linking the work of Epicurus to modern poetics. The book remains a touchstone of environmental writing and the ethical turn of poetry in this century. In 2010, Roof published Joan Retallack's procedural elegies, Western Civ, named an Artforum Best Book of 2010. As the title suggests, the book is entirely and variously composed of procedural pieces. As the title suggests, the mashup of epics lays out as passionate prose. For a long time, this is a quote, for a long time I used to believe that Twinkies had a shelf life longer than the lifespan of the common loon. Sometimes when I put aside thoughts of trumpets in Denmark, 1500 BCE, my eyes would close to dreams of the spectacled eider on the other side of the lens. Marconi and his South Wellfleet wireless brought beads of sweat to many a forehead, a smile to many a careworn face, circa 1903. Static picked up one big bang after another. Joan's writing opened new vistas for those in the avant-garde while building on the foundation of prior avant-gardists. She says she considers procedural elegies a kind of threshold to her 2019 litmus book, Boscht, Fables, Moral Tales, and Other Awkward Constructions. For example, among her definitions in Boscht, human, the human is one of the many humorous creatures rolled out in the evolution of this planet. Wholly animal, charismatically self-conscious, intellectually ambitious, emotionally feral. Prone to abstraction, estrangement, hubristic fantasies, bitter depression. Psychologically lethal, while imaginatively promising, the we that are human no more, no less than a part of nature. Nature is the whole of us. Denial of that has been our greatest folly. And finally, Joan broaches the continuing conundrum of identity in, quote, puzzling interlude in the uncanny valley. If they are living like humans in the uncanny valley, and we are living like humans in the uncanny valley, how do we know whether we are we or they? You can't really pin down what human is, although you can say some things about us. I myself am not entirely sure if we are we or they, hopefully both, but I do know that our celebrated reader is Joan Retallack.
Thank you very much, James, for that lovely introduction. I feel delighted to be reading in this series, which has been so important for decades. Only recently happening in this grid of boxes of talking heads. I want to begin with an invocation, actually, to one of my longtime mentors. And I will do it with this, reading this quote, which most of you, I think, will recognize. The only thing that is different from one time to another is what is seen. And what is seen depends upon how everybody is doing everything. It is understood by this time that everything is the same except composition and time. Composition and the time of the composition and the time in the composition. And that's, of course, Gertrude Stein from Composition as Explanation. I read that because that is what all of what I'm about to read is about. As a composed reading, I'm going to begin with the first few pages of this wonderful book that Ruth published in 2010, procedural elegies, Western Civ continued. And the continued has to do with the fact that I have had a Western Civ project going since the, I think the late 70s. The part of it that's in this book was first published by Abacus in either the late 70s or early 80s. I'll have to find a copy of it to figure that out someday. But it's gone on in other things that I've done in other genres. And parts of it are in Bosched, my latest book. So I'll begin with the definition of procedure that I chose to begin Western Civ continued with. The action or fact of proceeding or issuing from a source, a methodical way of determining how to begin, how to go on, and sometimes antecedent to elegy, how to end. Elegy, specific gravity, specific humor, song of lamentation as a tree that is o'erplanted upon the waters, that all the humor sendeth his roots. Words end where elegy begins, and vice versa. Now Jenny has everything. She performs every day and twice on Saturday. She is content as the archaeology of our thought easily shows. Man is an invention of recent date, and one perhaps nearing the end. On this basis, modern positivism erected a pure methodology, purged, however, of the really interesting problems. Emptiness first registered the vibration that now charms and comforts and helps. I have thought that the bird makes the same noise differently. So that's a small procedural poem appropriated from Sendak, Habermas, Foucault, Rilke, and Stein. And now, actually, I'd love the image of the Bosched cover to come up. I want you to see that because it, in a sense, is the choreography of various kinds of people and odd circumstances that spools out into the entire book. Bosched is really the beginning of Bosched fables, moral tales, and other awkward constructions. The book is composed, organized as a kind of secular liturgy, which means that in this case, all of the parts have Latin titles as liturgies that I have experienced in my growing up had. And each part also has a vulgate or a vulgar translation of that Latin title. So I'm going to take something from each one of the parts, giving you the title, with the exception of the final part of the book. And I'll tell you what that title is when I get to it, but I won't read anything from it. So I'm beginning with in loco, which in Latin means on the spot, to use the less formal translation. And also I'm going to read a little epigraph by G. Talik. Nature is not the opposite of culture. It is the entanglement of all things. The ventriloquist's dilemma. Migratory echoes, birdsong entered our words and left with migratory echoes insufficiently dispersed. We are not designed to perceive most of what surrounds us or to fully understand the rest. Maybe it's true nonlinear equations drove the teenager off the road. The self-propagating slope remains unhindered in its XY axis. It's always difficult to state these things rigorously. Sound waves break on the shore, making some feel unwelcome. And two, there's that conspicuous absence of real metaphor in nature. Sorry, I think I meant to say there's that conspicuous absence of real nature in metaphor. Someone will claim real is a misleading construct. Someone will claim night flew into a tree. Those 5 words in a line. None too soon. Located in memories without precedent, fine stock of syllables not yet squandered in pliant affirmation. Don't be scared. The more non-existent of the gods are the only ones counting your blunders. Hard to forget what's never been known for sure. Yearning minds conjure thoughts bound to deform the musculature of the most determined smile. The only worthwhile thought experiment of which I'm currently aware is to construct a logical space-time bracket in which all of us, animal, mineral, vegetable, are sometimes dreaming. Anthropocenes, anthropocenities. The storm is slanted toward the trailer park. No immigrant ripple, pith inescapable, the class of all thoughts that can't entertain themselves, upend would-be transcendence lurking here. Shine, Baukna, beacon, no ship won't go down in that Gesamtkunst stormy sea. Bacon sizzles on the non-stick pan. What is mean or meant in this? Who cares to know? One dimension grinds noisily past another in a routine demonstration. Proper response, enjoy the friction, avoid collision. Beautiful silver fish jumps out of water and explodes in air. Trans-nipple cue. Will some of us never be post-data? These long days, nights are too mean, too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry for too many of us on this planet. And now from the second section, in loco scientia, math and sci. Popular science, dark streets. Parallel sentences never meet on these dark streets. The beauty of the violent act is under-acknowledged, over-indulged. Conversion factors won't reconcile class divides. The formerly unwielding blob of over-processed reality looks great in your new apartment. Studies have shown we don't have to think in binaries. Studies have shown we do. Studies have shown we can override what studies have shown with tactics almost proven to elude most studies. Shiny nuance parsers, precise ethos, logos, pathos detectors, frankly sinister savoir-faire, i.e., capacity to be aloof but there. According to highly respected longitudinal studies, there are no survivors. Know in your heart, you needn't take that on faith. Forms of everyday life. Miscalculations adding up once again. Stalking dadas stab the air with real forks, inevitably mistaken as surreal. Stockings are pulled tight over the nicest faces. Ordinary people rise up, up and away, rise to more and more inauspicious occasions with dutiful vigor. Can anyone doubt why everyone is a bit more bitter than better? The they, sinister as always, climb out of their prefab holes, funnel typhoon wit into upside down steeple confections. This is the life, or so they used to say, breaking into ghastly laughter on the silver screen. The dead, quite whimsically strewn about, exhibit stunning color coordination. Apart from that, there are no secret codes. Puzzling interlude. Is the alphabet a fable and every letter a moral? Is every letter a fable and the alphabet a moral? In loco tempus, nick of time, a question of time arises to play the sun in a dark little paragraph like this one now intruding, to say hallelujah for all that ancient experiments in space and time divulged so long ago. The humorous fact that time is nothing more than fricatives and twitchy ticks of nature's moving parts, made noticeable by habits of attention, like this one, now inducing we punctum's interruption of what another verbose sentence should know better than. Moral. A sentence is an interval during which, if there is a difficulty, they will do away with it. Gertrude Stein. And now I've been reading actually from sheets that I printed out. I'm going to move to my book to read the last piece that I'll read from In Loco Tempus. By now, things to keep in mind. By now, many people on the planet know the best way to get a chimpanzee off the roof, as Wittgenstein did not write in Proposition 5.62. We are making decisions that flow from ancient social instincts. Freedom was not necessarily what they wanted, just a way out of the chaos. This is the theory of the ellipsis. The ellipsis begins here, dot, dot, dot. On your silent journey through the tenses, try to locate the dot that is turned into a period. For a long time, it has seemed too late to understand the most important things in any space-time unit before it is time to move on. For a long time, it has seemed too late to learn from each other's experience, or even from one's own experience. And so it has seemed the only thing to do is fast forward to the next space-time unit. From this point on, as before, good luck, etc. For a long time, it has seemed too soon to understand the most important things said or written in all those others, or even one's own words. And so it has seemed the thing to do is to fast forward from this point on, or if possible, some other point on, as if unlike the point before, good luck, etc. For what now seems much too long, it has or had seemed both too soon and too late to know the most useful things to say and do in the many emergencies that come and go at speeds of sound and light in one space-time unit after another. By now, it's time, not quite too late, to not forget, to fill out timesheets in order to move on to the next space-time unit in almost the nick of time. Meanwhile, we regret to inform you that your present space-time unit is full of all the words it can safely hold. Please, without delay, fill out your timesheet and move on to the next space-time unit. Thank you very much. Good luck as ever, etc. Please exit your space-time unit immediately. Follow fast forward contrail to next space-time unit as quickly and as safely as you can. Once, what seemed to be revelatory zones in space-time units, much like these, were thought to create new spaces, social spaces. Now they appear to be only archives. For a long time, it has seemed both too early and too late to distinguish optimism from hope and vice versa, as occupants of space-time units go on ignoring all our useful tips. In the news photo, the couch appeared to be floating on the rubble of the demolished home. In Lamu, on a small island off Somalia, the hunt for the terrorists has streets deserted, people hiding in their houses. At another location off the coast of Somalia, someone is interviewing the people of Sioux. The people of Sioux peel their almonds and keep beautiful donkeys, well-fed, well-rested, oiled. The people of Sioux say the donkeys of Lamu are like flea-bitten dogs. Their owners sully their food with the dirty brown skins of unpeeled almonds. By now, the people of Lamu should know better, say the people of Sioux. They should know to oil their donkeys. They should know to peel their almonds. some other things to keep in mind. When you locate the dot that is turned into a period, do not hesitate to let us know if you have any questions. Or you can just release the dot back into the ellipsis. Meanwhile, do not hesitate to stay in motion. Do not hesitate to fast forward until borders between space-time units are blurred and fizzed with beautiful electrostatic showers. Do not hesitate to review Zeno's laws against motion to discover what happens if you hesitate. Do not hesitate to try once again to understand proposition 5.62, along with any other proposition that strikes your fancy in any other compellingly numerical scheme of propositions. In loco malum et alteritas, evil and others. And I'm just going to read the opening puzzling interlude for this section. It's called Projectile Legacies. And it begins with a quote from Nicole D. Riggs, a high school student from Inkster, Michigan, who was participating in something called the racecardproject.com that is hosted by Wayne State University. So this is Nicole Riggs. Will they ever stop fearing us? How to think about future contingent possibilities of indigenous peoples caught in past perfected, present participling legacies of genocide and appropriation. How to think about future contingent possibilities of African Americans caught in past perfected, present participling legacies of white supremacy and slavery. How to think about future contingent possibilities of Palestinians caught in past perfected, present participling legacies of Nakba and occupation. Oppressors fear most those whom they oppress to the point of terror. That, by the way, is a procedural piece that could go on and on. You could think of who the next group would be in that series. And then the section that ends the book, which I'm not going to read from, but I will tell you, actually, I'll read a little epigraph that begins it, but it is titled In Loco Confessio, which I translate as Spilling the Beans. And it is composed of two long procedural poems. So here's another G. Talik epigraph. Virtue. Virtue is in our own alterity. See animal fables, see weirdness of saints. And then I'm going to finish with a suite of procedural sonnets. It's actually called Polities and or Sonnets. Enigmatic quatrains and stealth couplets, but I have to take a sip of water first. upheaval, the refugee trek through Europe, or a stranger in my own country, or the lure of technocracy, or linguistics, why it matters, or classics, why it matters, or art, why it matters, or wonder beyond belief, or God is beautiful, or state of emergency, or I am not a brain, or why the world does not exist, or worse, or formations of the unconscious, or talking to a brick wall. In the last interview, or on the names of the Father, or thinking in cases, or I know how many of you there are, or the true life, or philosophy and the idea of communism, or figures of history, or in praise of theater, or our wound is not so recent, or black, the brilliance of a non-color, or the future of whiteness, or human dignity, optical media, or in praise of mathematics, or what is to be done, on love, or the method of equality, or the politics of literature, or aesthetics and its discontents, or the aesthetic imperative, or saving beauty, or selected exaggerations, or what happened in the 20th century, or what is power, or the scent of time, or rape and resistance, or the expulsion of the other, or the feminine subject, or cinema, jealousy, anxiety, the feminine subject, or dispossession, or the post-human, or aren't we all post-racial yet? Or the lure of technocracy, or freedom to fail, or an imaginary racism, or the fanaticism of the apocalypse, or a biography of ordinary man, or the feminine subject, or general theory of victims, or intellectuals and power, or the insurrection of the victim, or classification struggles. Clint Eastwood's America, or Spike Lee's America, or Alfred Hitchcock's America, or Steven Spielberg's America, or Martin Scorsese's America, or Foucault now, or Derrida now, or Rancière now, Nancy now, or xenofeminism, or narco-capitalism, or why philosophize, or PlayStation Dream World, or persons and things. Platform capitalism, or infinite distraction, or immaterialism, or the radicality of love, or symbolic misery, or automatic society, or states of shock, or the lost spirit of capitalism, or uncontrolled societies of disaffected individuals, or what makes life worth living, or the great accelerator, or the futurism of the instinct, or the university of disaster, or death shall be dethroned. Human dignity, or dream notes, or abstract and brief chronicles of the time, or the feminine subject, or old women in bloom, or the art of freedom, or Eve escapes, or Zero's neighbor, or philosophical introductions, or 5 approaches to communicative reason, or the triumph of religion, or networks of courage and hope, or search engine society, or a history of silence. Those sonnets are derived from the Polity Books Catalog of Literary and Cultural Studies 2018 New and Recent Titles. And I thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you all later. And immediately, no, not so immediately, after James's intermission, very much looking forward to Monica's reading.
Thank you, Joan. That was wonderful. Now let's take a 5-minute intermission, during which we'll ask you to donate $5 to the readers. And remember, all donations go to pay the poets. So Izzy, if you'd put up the intermission. Welcome back, and thank you for your donations. As always, all contributions to the Segue Reading Series go directly to pay the poets. So please, if you haven't donated already, do so at the end of the program. We'll post the payment methods again after the show. And now, on to our second reader of the afternoon. In 2008, I made the acquaintance of and published, I think, the first full-length book of Monica de la Torre. At that point, an energetic graduate student with a name so common that her roof book, Public Domain, contained a political tract about the many different Monica de la Torre she might find if she were looking for her mother, Monica de la Torre. I was enchanted by the idea of a poet recognizing her common nomenclature in the welter of very special people who call themselves poets. This idea was truly standout in a period when, frankly, experimental poetry floundered in the surf of the second wave of conceptualism. Now, in her new book, she links herself in the prose work Interjet 2996, perhaps a reference to her compatriot Roberto Bolaño's 2666, quote, flying back to JFK from Mexico City, whose pair of synonymous names, by official decree and a mighty branding effort, had been reduced to one. She hears a woman calling her name, but no, not calling for her. At first, you might think I'm talking about an identity crisis, but not really. I see Monica's work as seeking and detecting the parallels, linkages, connections, and identifications that make our world both sequential in the narrative sense and connected in the biological sense through both inheritance and homology, which shows similar structure driven by environmental effects rather than genetics. Quote, now the older woman, sensing my attentiveness to her, starts addressing me from across the aisle with a jarring familiarity. Monica knows she's talking to another woman, a Mexican woman of a specific age, class, at least enough to know that she may speak to her intimately to convey the importance of opening the latch on her tray table. Misfortune heaped upon irony, Monica's hallmark of urbane-nested air flights, poems, and earthquakes. One of the reasons I think Monica's thinking attracts my reading is her willingness to show the full spectrum of poetic engagement, not just lyric, not just appropriation, not just any one thing. And consistent with this series' focus on taxonomy over evaluation, page 70 of her new book, Repetition 19, lists 25 top types of translation, a translation key, if you will, a poem in itself. T1, embedded translation. T2, superimposed original and translation. T3, self-translation informed by journal entries from 1996, the original poem's year of composition. T4, early Google Translate version from 2012. T5, version of the poem produced by a person with partial knowledge of Spanish upon hearing the original, courtesy of Drain Fine. And her imagination goes on. So I hope you'll enjoy our next reader. Please welcome Monica de la Torre.
Thank you so much, James, for that introduction. And thank you so much, everyone. Okay, am I visible? I think I am, right? Yes. I do have these funny little, there we go. Okay. Hello, everyone. I am so thrilled to be here reading with Joan, whose poetry and thinking, her essays just always teach me so much. There's just so many ideas in one of her poems. So I'm glad she read from her new book, because I've gone back to it a couple of times and I look forward to going back to it again. And those new sonnets are incredible. So I hope they make it to print really soon because I want to hear them again. And as she said, this reading series has been so important to me. It's like my alternate MFA, I have to say, and I just adore the fact that it's been going on for so long and that it continues, and that you've managed to make it work despite the circumstances. Okay, I'm gonna get to business now. I will read you a few recent poems, and perhaps it's too soon to read them, but it's always kind of thrilling to me to read some new work, and I've done that before for this reading series, and then I'll read you from Repetition 19. So I'm just gonna get to it. Out of the blue. Was your voice always raspy? I mean, in a good way. Can't answer. Voice is for others to hear. They took out the singing bowls on Sundays. Strange how they would not sound sometimes, and then all of a sudden they sung. With a wooden stick, they would surround the rim faster and faster until brass sang. Speak, sing, spoke, song, sing song, sang song, sing song, shriek, speak, surround sound, slowly soften stiff surfaces, studies severity, sound surround, sabotages separateness, strike, silence, schedules stretched, stopped, surrounding sound, she and they and listen. So you are given a coin. The third side is song. Play it back. March. A glove is no banana peel on the sidewalk. Uncoupled or twined, sighted often, recumbent, released by the hand's reach. Signaling to passersby, left behind, discarded, either way, overlooked. Speaking a sign language of waste, how we protect ourselves. One becomes many, spreads. Nitrile among utility markings, masks, trash, in lots, parks, amid carts, and hieroglyphs in a different key, stains. Ghostly ciphers of fear. Dancers in a minimal choreography of absence, dormant, infected, wilted blossoms, fallen birds. April. What you stand up for, that is precisely the elision. Press, share, post, sitting still. Break this up where you will, I don't care. If will matches like, brings nothing but the simulation of attention and cacophony. Right then, music being her fuel, thoughts of Anna burst into the poem. Last name, unknown. Our community more provisional than anticipated, and the dance entertained theoretically as if to treat thinking as an experimental field of action. Her words and their source, her bonds, as factual as her long commute to the building, the dust gathered every other week, the tomatoes from the garden upstairs she would bring, her pre-existing condition, her humor, knowing, her infection, no glimmer of her eyes in another dissolving number. Stings to know her not being anymore, her gone. In the weeks that followed, the walking iris bloomed 3 short-lived blooms thrice. Spring she did not partake of, lingering on. May. Write in the voice of an armed protester is the assignment I'm given when the workshop turns the tables on me. Loud voices meld together. It's weird to think that this all started with an off-the-cuff rant over Aladdin the musical. Heil Whitmer, sick. She's the reason we need the Second Amendment. Fuck you, fake media. Put me on TV too. My name is Fred. I'll give you my card. 6 feet, yeah, fuck you. I've got hydrochloroquine, I'm fine. I've got my brown hair Barbie doll in a noose. Western chauvinist includes all races, religions, and sexual preferences. We refuse to apologize. We're not the alt-right. Being proud of Western culture today is like being a disabled non-white lesbian communist in 1953. Michigan Proud Boys USA. You are a joke. If you were born a woman and would like to be involved here, there is a girls group. They call themselves Proud Boys Girls. Tyrant bitch. No one mentions Chekhov's principle. We don't get to discuss Burroughs' notion of language as a virus, how it is that certain types of discourse are more virulent than others, and how we all will inoculate ourselves. I ask myself, if I try to clear the air, will I sound like a motivational speaker? And I knew that I was being reductive in doing so. August. We leave the city on and off and off and on. The plants seem hardier for it, as if they too need space, or the compulsoriness of our uninterrupted company sucks the air out of the room, pollutes their habitat, as if they too sense the pulsations of our reluctance. 5 more days pass. In that corner of the sky, Orion is possibly the constellation whose pinholes I point out to Jane. Shadow prances as we walk over to a darker area of the field to catch the shooting stars. The sadness of the turn the poem took takes us by surprise. We find ourselves welling up. We find ourselves verbing. We lose our grip. Once, to love the city, you had to hate it every now and then. Disappointment preordained by expectation of returns. There's intermittent eroticism, the erotics of intermittence, and dead ends. Andy says he's gone for good. Aki and Makiko head back to Japan. Neighbors leave for the suburbs. Even Angela, East Village born and bred, thinks she wants out. The skyline discontinues itself at night, but sidewalk furniture doesn't go unwanted. We rarely visited the joint down the street, menu board blank, awning still there. At the waterfront park, a man in disbelief goes on about a Staten Islander who's not once set foot in Central Park. Across the river, we get stuck in traffic on 42nd. A truck driver keeps us cool, plays a flute between lights. The wax museum's reopened. Outside, Minnie takes a breather, mouse mask dangling from neck, face mask over nose and mouth. We make it another river over past American Dream, the mammoth new complex sitting empty in Jersey. September, chance encounter. Out with Shadow at the crossroad, listening to Emily Wilson talk about how to translate the images associated with death in the Iliad. She mentions the freeing of limbs as if once body parts were tied in a knot that death loosens. A truck advertising interior demolition dashes by. October. If this were to ever reach you, please forgive my screaming when you bumped into me while horsing around with the other kids at the park. I went all vigilante on you. I'm so terribly sorry you weren't out to infect me with a deadly disease. Your laughter, sweet, my niña, pon atención, terrifying you, fear or rage released. It wasn't you. If you choose not to, it's only fair. December. Who can say where we're going? To be sure, I'd split my attention, so now looking back, I couldn't tell. if I'd succumbed to the logic of the gimmick when breaking, things to make the stone stonier when even the scare, not a cliche, quotes demanded to be in quotes. When the numbness setting in was as frightening a prospect, there was something to be said about technique, like the technology of looking away from one screen to have the eyes land in a scene from a music video and mute on another screen. False, no-show, priority, style, parent, margin, pagination, widow, orphan, font, family, theme, minor, Latin, scene. Code visible all of a sudden, scrambling everything like malware or virus. In that frame, an extravaganza of go-go boots, a dollyish queen, and a cowboy leaning on a horse-pence fence, all glam saturation and radiance. What I'd wanted here was to place a comma, take a breather, retrace my steps, but we jumped into the new year sitting down, broadcasting ourselves wrapped, not wondering how. We ended up here in other corners of the web, where delusion kept up its recruital of denialists, denying denial strategy or tactic, the question unanswerable even in hindsight. A line for each day of the month reminding me of Cataline Ladik's saying, only in performance did she figure out what her scores meant. Later we'd know that her actions to settle the score, later we would know that the actions to settle the score were no improvisation, so I ascribed them to a time prior to their having happened. Would they, like the truthism that was once an oft-told lie, repeat again? Okay, so I'm going to now change gears and read you something lighter, I think. And this is in repetition 19. It's a part of the book that is kind of like another book within a book. It's called Replay. And I want to dedicate it to my friend Farnoosh Fati, who helped kick this off actually, and it's her birthday today. So I send her a big duck face kiss and happy birthday wishes, and thank her for helping me launch this when it happened. So basically, I was invited to do a workshop residency at Madison Square Park in 2017. That was simultaneous, that took place within the context of an exhibition by Josiah McElhaney, which was a very complex, beautiful public installation project, public art project that involved the collaboration of dancers, musicians, and poets. And the poets were invited to take residency at the park. And you know, the dancers danced and the musicians played music, but as a poet, I couldn't imagine reading for 5 days. So I imagined, I came up with the idea to recruit people, passersby at the park, to write poems with me based on translation, riffing off translation. So then I amassed really great material that I didn't know what to do with until the idea to put it all together in the form of a play came to me. So I'm gonna read you the proceedings of day 2. And this is nice graphics that were included by the designer of the book, Brian Hoxberger. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna start. Here we go. Day 2. Anyone who's been in the city long enough knows there's a price to pay for the bounty good weather brings, a steep or negligible one, depending on one's sensitivity to construction noise. Today, we're in another spot near the park's north fountain on what would be 25th Street. A couple shows up. Lou is American, Maria is from Ecuador. At this point, I'm more comfortable in English. It's changed through the years. How long have you been here? 47 years. I have something to show you. Here's this poster with words that are defunct in Spanish. They're what? It's words that nobody uses anymore. They're obsolete. Some are cognates like this one, interlope. I don't even know what that means. It's related to interloper, someone who inserts themselves where they don't belong. Yeah, an opportunist. I knew somebody named Joffre. Milagro looks like milagro, miracle. It does, sí. I mean, there are possibilities, but no veo algo que pueda decir esto sí sé qué es. Juvenco may be something to do with youth. Hológrafo sounds like something to do with writing. That comes to mind. Algo que ver con escritura, pero no sé qué exactamente. Yeah, maybe. No tengo idea. I don't know what noema is either. You don't know? She cackles. I thought it was supposed to know what I was supposed to know. I mean, for how long have they not been in use? I'll look it up. Doesn't in moto look familiar? In the mood, in the Gregory, not to be confused with yesterday's Greg, shows up with a friend. Hey, this is Marit, an artist from Norway. Marit, is your name a version of Maria? No, it's a very old-fashioned Norwegian name. So the blue curving, the blue sculpture is Josiah's? Yeah. What if Maria from Ecuador and Marit from Norway had the same name? Maria Dolores originally. With a few other names, of course, interjects Lou, whom I keep referring to as Louis. Funny, I don't think that the name Dolores has equivalents in other languages. When I'm bad, sometimes I say, Maria me da dolores. No one but me gets the joke. Maria gives him pains. Gregory is more curious than impatient. So what's going on here? I just read them a piece of mine in Spanish, and they each wrote a poem based on what they heard. They have yet to show us what they did. Consider yourselves recruited. Gregory looks at Lou's cap. Are you a Yankees fan? I am. Severino was so great last night. He's their best pitcher. So you want me to read my poem if I'm not too embarrassed? Ilya a marauder, sore bow, calf, a pole, yo olla pot, smoking hot. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood. Sí, está. Glasses, I spied, holistically quiet the evening. A child has been added from 2 to 3. Tia guarantees tea. Tres libros. I doze 4 times, I said a name, and nothing happens until you begin virtuti. Great. What about your version, Maria? I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. I wrote while you were reading. Silence, flame, a sip, un hoyo dentro de un agujero, 4, 2 lights, 1 grandchild, friend and foe, 3 open books, no reply, no answer, 4 equals 2. What am I doing here? If no answer, burn your bed and take off. And then I wrote, things change, some don't change. We change, but not really. Life goes on. Louis is going to share another poem with us. You're a poet? Oh, now it all makes sense. And Marit, you're going to translate it into Norwegian, yes? Oh no. Gregory nudges her. You have to do it. And since we don't know Norwegian, you can make it up. You can translate it any way you want. I need a pause. I cannot focus. Maybe it's the noise. Maybe I had too much to drink last night. It'd be so nice. You don't have to do anything original. Just repeat whatever you hear in Norwegian. We'll listen to you and write new versions. Another thing we could do is translate all the stupid sounds around us. The noise is really terrible, terrible. It reminds me of the dentist. Don't they take a lunch break or something? Maybe we should go over and suggest to them that it's a good time to have a sandwich and a coffee. Maybe we could bring them a sandwich and a coffee. See, that's the great thing about this. The great thing about this is that we're all going to mishear the poem. I mean, it is New York City. So we'll each write down what we hear when she reads. Marit, your participation is essential for this to work. I will turn on my super brain in a moment. Louis, we're ready. Do you want to share your poem with us? No, I can't find it. Wait, I found it. It's a short one, a political one. Good. We need political poems. Poetry meets reality. We told the agents from ICE as we surrounded them that if they wanted to deport the immigrants, they would have to take us to, and they did. Marit turns it into, let me see. I want all of you to hear this. Marit turns it into something I cannot read to you right now. But Gregory introduces his version of his poem, what Marit said. This is a stark poem that is going to rouse the masses. You see, much real treats, again, play it to these trees. Some see a unity, these willing, impressive immigrants. 3 much of tar autos. Oh, the horror days. Nice. Does it have a title? Louis, does yours have a title? Poem/rant. I don't have a title yet. How about stopping by the trees on a loud afternoon? Good one. Who wants to go next? Here's mine, titled Slasher Rant. Poesy in such an intercept, I can't play informant for ice. Zombie, you're frozen, eh? TV granting, the migrante, no deed, muckintar, oh so, oh dear. You're not dead. I like it, says Lou. Maria goes next. What is reality? What is real? Against what are we fighting? Some say we're not ready. Where are the immigrants? We have all multiplied. How awesome. We are all united. Their daughter Lena at some point had showed up with a very quiet chihuahua. She's also participating. Who sees the reality against the play of the país? Sun, the humility, débil de inmigrante, the multitude of osos, oh, the iiuu de ti. I love the multitude of osos. Does anybody speak a language other than Spanish or Norwegian? German. I'll read you something. How about the opening lines of a Rilke poem?
Stiller Freund der vielen Fernen, fühle, wie dein Atem noch den Raum vermehrt.
It's a great poem, silent friend of the many distances. There's a great stanza that will help all of us in these difficult times. And when the earthly has forgotten you, to the silent earth say, I'm flowing. To the rushing water say, I am. It's an assertion of self. It's Rilke at the highest level. There's another helpful one. Is drinking bitter to you? Become wine. You can't go wrong with Rilke. Marit reads her version. That's really beautiful. What does it say in Norwegian? I don't know if it makes any kind of sense. Actually, it talks about space, about falling, and about darkness. Want to give it a rough translation? The friend of silence with the star's permission, some fall into the darkness, black as in the big space, dark future. It's so noisy here. You know, John Cage said you should welcome distraction because it can only teach you to focus. That's a good point. Oh, hi. Hey, loud, eh? This is Stephen, everyone. We're here because of him. Awesome. I've seen him before. Join us. We're translating Rilke. Okay, so I'll read it slowly. Do either of you speak German? No, that's good. Great. Let's hear it again.
Stiller Freund der vielen Fernen, fühle, wie dein Atem noch den Raum vermehrt.
Oops, we have another participant. Hey, Clint, you might have to do it again. Come sit with us. No problem. I can read this poem till the cows come home. It's a good moment to jump in. I'm on my lunch break. I can't stay too long. Write what you hear.
Stiller Freund der vielen Fernen, fühle, wie dein Atem noch den Raum vermehrt.
Still friends of the feeling fair, we dine at 10, knock 10 vows, fair marked. Children, Freud's friend from the file, fear not, ooh la la, die for lack of breath, night surrounds, fear mere existence. They are feeling, it's unfair. They are attempting to get grounded and wait for the miracle. Still, our friends, the fieles fueren, full of divine breath, knock them around, fear mort. Still a friend or field, through like a flight, video and time, not a realm, fear like near. Still a friend, we dare to be fair, filling time and as the end, knocking on doors, still closed. Still a friend, dear feeling, fear none, fool, divine attempt, knock them down, fear not. Silent friend of the many distances, how your breath still enlarges space. Clint leaves. Lou, Lena, and Maria get on their way too. The jackhammers quiet down. Now we hear birds and children at the playground nearby. A man with a stroller is interested in what we're doing. Well, I gotta cruise around with him. He gets kind of restless, you know? So I don't think I can sit in one spot. We might hit the playground. Maybe we'll catch some of it later. Thanks, guys. Hey, we translate baby talk too. Rebecca stops by. Her prompt is to find a person who can tell her about their favorite words in a language that's not English. A Chinese woman is collecting recyclables from the trash bins in the fountain area. She waves us away. We speak to a young woman with a roller suitcase who's on her way back home to Chicago. Her favorite words in Urdu are Meri Jaan, Beta, and Betty. The words for son and daughter, honey dear, her mother would say to them when they were growing up. Merritt, Stephen, Gregory, Christine, and I write brief poems in invented languages whose transliteration has yet to be decided upon, and thus, at the moment, remain confined to recordings of their single instance of oral delivery. It's as if each of us are possessed by spirits from distant times and places.
Congratulations on inventing a language.
Yeah, I'm excited about
Monza eteja aeteru. Say,
Thank you. You bet. That's beautiful.
Exofta, Mosha, Etat, Ya, Erato, of Si, Eta, Eva, Zitri, Ezitini, Itim, X.
Awesome.
Everyone's supposed to read it?
Yes, if you want to. No one is supposed to do anything, but if you want, it's really fun. I think we should all actually write some lines in an invented language that everybody else has to read.
Ekjort, Meditia, Etitia, Etetio, Ukipsei, Ukipchip, Mitzi, Etenue, Zikipi, Petnini, Eatsimpis, Ekip.
Hey.
They're all so different. They're all so different. Here you go.
Deeply meaningful. That's so beautiful.
Exhorta Monsia Extiza Ha Actiero Ortop Si Actizia Mavsi Etya Nevi Zipsi and Teeny Yet tell me I
Hey.
Bravo.
It sounds like sound out or something crazy. That's the beauty of it. I think it's much more meaningful than that. It's a profound writing. Before leaving, Gregory writes a poem in a language that is not in his mother tongue. I travel and fly, and every now and then walk and come and then return or not. I am not certain. Everything is different. The birds are friends. Other animals are also. The distances are friendly. I love the world and quite a number of people. The mountains are friends. I'm a friend of my friends. You know where this comes from? When Mandelstam was dragged before Stalin's troops, he was like, "What do you want of me? I am the colleague of Anna Akhmatova. I'm a friend of my friends." And he knows that as soon as he says this, he's going to be killed. Again, the day's session ends with our efforts to resuscitate defunct words. Interlope, noun. 1. A four-legged mammal resulting from the cross of an interpreter and an antelope. 2. One who mediates between two parties. 3. To go inside the wrong way, the act of. Nipos, conjugation. 1. Ni por favor, ni pero. Neither please nor but maybe. Nipos, noun. 1. Japanese soybean snacks for those allergic to peanuts. 2. Nephews. Ofideido, adjective. 1. At feet day went when the day is over and it felt like it cost a lot with nothing or not enough. Gained, where is God here? Ofideido, noun. 1. One who cannot commit to a choice, an indecisive person. 2. A small round plastic case mounted on a ring to transport microscopic objects on your finger. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica. That was lovely. And thank you all for tuning in today.